It would help if I unmute myself. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name is Felipe. I'm with the San Diego Financial Literacy Center, Debt Wave Credit Counseling. And I've been talking for the last 30 seconds, but it was on mute. So I apologize for that. We are here today. We're going to do the Smart With Your Money live like we do every other Wednesday. Today, we're talking addiction and financial debt. First, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a professional counselor or anything like that. If you do find that addiction is something that you're battling of any kind, help is available 24/7 through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration's hotline. I know it's a mouthful, but the number is pretty easy. It's 1-800-662-HELP. And then, of course, financial stress is real and can feel overwhelming. Your finances can be fixed, but if you ever do feel you're suicidal or thoughts about harming yourself, I do want to remind everyone the Suicide Help Prevention Lifeline is now 988. So much easier to remember than whatever that old number was. But with that, we'll get started. Addiction and financial debt. And first, I don't like definitions usually, but I felt it was important this time. Addiction, this is according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addictions use substances or engage in behavior that becomes compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences. Prevention efforts and treatment approaches for addiction are generally successful for those as those for other chronic diseases. So it is a something that people struggle with. It is real, and it can have big financial implications. And it can be a small financial implication, more of a financial inconvenience for some, but sometimes the addiction eventually gets to a point where it can lead to big catastrophic financial consequences. So it is important, whatever the addiction is, to seek for help and look for assistance wherever it is you can find it. Now, addiction doesn't necessarily have to mean drugs. I know sometimes that's kind of the first thing that's thought of, but when it comes to addiction, it's not about just illegal drugs and substances, or over-the-counter opioids or things like that. You can become addicted to a whole bunch of other things, much more socially acceptable, much more readily available, perfectly legal, perfectly normal things. And I'll go over more of these here as well. We're not just going to concentrate on this, but I did want to start with substance abuse. It takes obviously a big I don't have a little gift for this one, but it can be one of the most expensive ones, maybe not the most expensive one. I'll get to that one here in a little bit, but definitely the one that can take the biggest toll on someone's physical health, which then down the road can lead to increased medical debt, medical treatments that may be needed. All with a lot of these, the financial impact isn't always immediate. It could be later down the road, later in life, that these financial costs come into play. But just briefly, there was a research that someone with substance abuse whose substance is marijuana can spend up to $1,000 a year, while methamphetamine addict may spend up to $4,000 a year, and then some of the more illicit drugs, the cocaine, heroin, can easily spend over $10,000 a year to support their habits. Again, this doesn't include the post-health expenses. This doesn't include, loss of income, loss of time. So, there's a lot more that goes to it. But Well, I was doing some research, like how many people have a fit the criteria for a substance use disorder. Well, over 20 million Americans aged 12 and older meet the diagnostic criteria, but only 3.8 million receive treatment for one, have received treatment for one in the last year. This is in the 2019 white paper from TrueLink. And, you know, that's a small percentage. If we're talking, just straight math, 2 million, people plus, and you're looking at less than 4 million are actually receiving treatment for it. A lot of this is going untreated. And then you have to estimate also how much of it goes undocumented and how much of that financial implications. That's 20 million Americans who might be also suffering the negative financial effects of their addiction, substance use disorder. And this doesn't even include all the other addictions. Now, there may be some overlap. Someone may have a substance use disorder and also, be gambling, which we'll get to in a little bit. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Someone may have more than one, but definitely a big number that caught my eye as I was looking for it. And then you try and ask yourself, like, well, is it getting better? And unfortunately, the answer is it's not getting better. Over the last 2 years, preventable drug overdose deaths increased by 58%, from 62,000 and change in 2019. While in 2021, over 98,000 people died from preventable drug overdoses. That was an increase of 781% from 1999. And these deaths represented 92% of the total drug overdose deaths in the United States. So a large percentage of it. Definitely, above the financial implications, you want to make sure that we're taking care of people and prevent that loss of life, which is far more important than the finances to go along with it. But if worrying about finances is the key to, or at least a little bit of a catalyst for someone who's suffering from a substance abuse disorder, and if that's what can right the ship, definitely put every potential motivator in front of that individual, in front of oneself. But as I mentioned, that's not the only addiction. There are other addictions, some more financially harming than others. Now, we're not talking My Strange Addiction. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show. It was a little cringe, like a little hard to watch sometimes, but people had really weird, random addictions. Again, I didn't watch it regularly, but I did watch a couple episodes, and sometimes it was like, okay, next. So we're not talking about those where it's like 2 people a year across the world have an addiction to eating dirt or something like that. I don't know if that was accurate. It's probably more than 2 people, unfortunately. But we're not talking those. We're talking about everyday addictions that people suffer from, and some of the financial consequences that go with it. We're going to start here with alcohol. Alcohol use disorder in the United States, it's estimated that 29.5 million people ages 12 and older had an alcohol use disorder in 2021. I did a presentation not too long ago for a group of, I think it was parents, and it was about budgeting. And one of the gentlemen said, oh, my wife is the one who overspends. That might be the same in other relationships. And then someone asked him, oh, do you drink? And he's like, oh yeah, I drink a beer here and there. I'm like, how much do you spend on alcohol every single month, year? Now, I don't know if he was an alcoholic or not, and I don't know how much he drank, but he stopped him kind of in his tracks, and then he started realizing, like, oh, maybe I spend a lot more than I thought, which I found interesting. I stayed out of that one. But his wife was sitting smiling, so they might have been onto something. But that's a lot of people. And alcohol use disorder is prominent also amongst U.S. adolescents. So if an alcoholic who drinks maybe two, and this math was done by our content writer Katie on the Debt Wave blog on the topic, but an alcoholic who drinks two cheap 6-packs of beer each day spends about $9 to support his or her addiction. That same rate of consumption produces a cost of roughly $63 a week, which is $252 a month, which is over $3,000 a year. And that may not sound like a huge amount, but $3,000 a year is nothing to, complain about if you were able to, put that money away. You do that, over the course of 10 years, you're talking over $30,000, and inflation, beer prices go up. It could have big financial implications, just alcohol consumption. And that's assuming someone's drinking, the cheaper, and they're not going out and spending higher amounts of money. And these charts are created by the NIAAA, and this is all .gov stuff. So going on to the next one, nicotine and cigarettes. A nicotine addict who smokes a pack a day can spend roughly over $2,100 a year on cigarettes. Depending on where they are, potentially there could be more, because cigarettes are sometimes more expensive in some states than other, once you calculate in taxes and things of that nature. So a pack a day, that one's pretty easy. If someone smokes a pack a day, they can go out, calculate how much their pack is wherever they're buying it, and then multiply that by 365, and there you go. That's how much their yearly nicotine cigarette consumption is. It's easier to calculate if it's a set amount. So that's over 6,000. People who have a heavy nicotine habit could be exceeding over $6,000 a year on that habit. Not to mention, again, future potential health complications, expenses that go along with it. Next one's a big one, and it's health-wise, it's not as negatively affecting as the previous ones, but financially, perhaps the most difficult to control and difficult on someone's finances is gambling. And it's unique because I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying that gambling is difficult because a gambling addict always has that out, or they potentially have that out of, if I could just break even, if I get that big win, I can break even, I could step away, or I just need the big win so I can break even. And there's always that illusion of, if I could just get this big win, then I'm done, which can help even drive it further. That illusion isn't there for cigarettes or alcohol or something like that. There's no if I just drink enough one day, then it'll be done. But gambling, and it's literally putting money and throwing money away, where you're not purchasing anything, you're using the money, the financials, to then gamble. I found this map on Wallet Hub, and it really does vary by state as far as some of the amounts of gambling that's going on, the ease of gambling, and obviously then also the financial impact on individuals who live in that state. I mean, looking at the state, some of the states may not be too surprising. I asked my 10-year-old, hey buddy, I'm doing this thing for work, where do you think the most gamblers live? And he said Nevada. So he got it right. The other states, I don't know if I would have gotten all of them, but Nevada's popular for I mean, that tourism goes, it's a big part of Nevada and Las Vegas, and there's movies about it. But South Dakota, Montana, Louisiana, Mississippi all round out the top 5. Us here in California, we just got out of that top 10. But I found it interesting. This chart also had the gambling friendliness and how that may, California made it into the almost into the top 10, and you're looking at gambling friendliness. It's not the most friendly place to gamble, apparently. Whereas, Nevada, they're number 1 for gambling friendly and for gambling and problem and treatment. So at least they're trying to, control that. But some of these other ones I found interesting. I didn't realize Montana was, up there, and some of the other ones, which I don't know what part of the country you guys are in. And if you see your state, the darker blue means more gambling addicted states, whereas these white states, if you're in Utah, I remember seeing Utah is the 50th, so the least gambling. So if you're there, good job. I think Vermont there up here was 49th. So that's all I remember from the list. But yeah, gambling is a tough one. It can happen whether it's a gambling friendly state like Nevada, where you can go to the liquor store, the gas station, the grocery store, the airport, any one of the corner little shops, and you can drop money in a slot machine, or whether it's happening, in places like California, where we do have casinos, but they're over on the Indian reservations and you can't bet online yet. And with the prominence of online gambling in a lot of these states becoming more and more prevalent, gambling can become more and more of a problem as well. But according to Wallet Hub, the male gambling addict can accumulate an average debt of between $55,000 and $90,000. It is a big number, whereas female addict averages $15,000 in debt. Obviously it can start off slow and then become more of a problem as gamblers try and catch up and try and, break even again. Wanted to touch on other addictions, not in full detail, but I mean, some of these, I got my coffee here, and caffeine, food, shopping. You'll notice there I changed some letters on these two so hopefully YouTube and Facebook and whatever don't get mad at me. So I'm not gonna say them, but exercise, video games, social media, and obviously there's all the really random ones as well. And different things are gonna have different financial implications. Some are going to be much greater than others. There's obviously a laundry list of other addictions that I did not cover, but other financial costs. It's a really important thing to remember. It's not just how much it costs to go buy the cigarettes, the alcohol, or something like that, but it could potentially mean loss of income due to lost jobs, lost job opportunities. I don't know if you guys remember this Seinfeld episode where they have the Hennigans, which is supposed to be like a odorless scotch, but you show up to a job interview, there's no such thing as that odorless scotch. So that could potentially result in lost job opportunities. There's the increase in debt, which then can, as we all know, debt can compound on itself. Now you're paying interest on things, now you're paying late fees, and then it starts to accumulate and become more of a problem. There's potential medical bills down the road, medical expenses, increased insurance costs, to lead all the way up to like increasing or throwing a wrench into like generational poverty, where in the long term that could potentially build on itself to a point where future generations are affected by it. Not just the science and the genetics behind, potentially, or I believe addiction is a genetic predisposition, but financially that generational poverty can go a long way. So what can be done? That I think I like to leave off on positive notes when I can. What can be done? Well, help is available 24/7, as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration hotline. There's the number right there. You check out their website. They have it for different things, English, Spanish. I thought I saw another language mixed in there, but that hotline is there. Reach out to local organizations that may be able to help. I mean, alcohol, you have the real big, long time Alcoholics Anonymous program. It's been around forever. You have nonprofits and other organizations. So look for community resources to help you out. And, it could be groups, could be faith-based, could be not faith-based, could be government programs, nonprofits, all kinds of different things. Look for resources in your area, or resources that you can connect the potential addict in your area. But really, it comes down to helping the individual identify the problem. If it's not you, the one who has the addiction, because they have to be able to see the problem and realize that they want to take steps to, work through that addiction, as opposed to, you can't force someone to work through their addiction. If it's you, look for help, talk to someone you trust, friends, family, and find that support, the personal support and the professional support, to help you move through your addiction, whatever that addiction may happen to be, if it becomes a problem. And remember that you are not alone in your addiction, and there's help out there. Don't, those finances will creep up on you, and maybe removing an addiction or two, or just one if you have it, or trying to sit down and ask yourself, like, how dependent am I with this caffeine? Could help your finances, and eventually also help you out. That's it for me. Any questions that you may have? If you're watching this on Facebook, normally we have a relay system where those questions are relayed over to me live, so I can answer them live. Unfortunately, not today's presentation. So if you do drop a question in Facebook, I didn't ignore you, we didn't ignore you. I'll go in there and answer them afterwards. Just don't have the live relay set up. There are no questions. You can always continue learning. Follow us on your favorite social media. If you follow the SDFLC on Instagram or Twitter, we're at SDFLC. On TikTok, we're s.d.finlit. And on YouTube, we are the San Diego and Facebook, San Diego Financial Literacy Center. I post daily swim tips, short, sweet, less than 30-second tip on something to do personal finances, something to do with personal finances. I try and make them entertaining when I can. Always make them educational, not always groundbreaking, because you only get less than 30 seconds. But follow us on there, give us some likes, give us some feedback. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to hear tips about? Good feedback, bad feedback. I'll take all the feedback I can get. So definitely join us on there, and join us for our next episode, why your credit score varies. I get this question a lot, where people say, well, my credit score went up 2 points, down 2 points. Should I, my score went down 2 points. Should I panic? No, you shouldn't panic. Those small variations happen, and there's no need to worry. Now, if your score's dropping, big chunks at a time, and you don't know why that is, time to pull your credit report and check it out. But those small little variations are minor, but we'll go over all that in detail in 2 weeks, same place. You register on Eventbrite and join us then. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by, and everybody have a great rest of your day.